Good news, everyone.
Then where are we now?
Do you have idiots on your planet?
You're obviously confused.
It's me, Zoidberg, remember, from high school?
Hello, you're listening to the Slurmcast, a podcast for no reason. Today we will be discussing Futurama Season 1, Episode 8, A Big Piece of Garbage, with your hosts, Tommy Roulette,
What's up, guys?
Pete Woodward,
That's me.
and I'm Rick Horchie. Joining us today, our special guests are Sarah Pivovar and Rachel Keaton. Hey, guys.
Hello. Hey.
Good job.
Thank you.
That's
That was a good call and response.
Cool.
That's all we needed from you guys. Thanks for coming
Oh,
over.
thanks so much. Thanks so much.
It's been a pleasure. So, usually we start out with sort of an introduction about what this episode is about, right, Horchie?
Mm-hmm. No, and Tom does that.
Tom does it.
Oh, I have to do it now? Okay.
You've been doing it. You know, you got like a couple sentences for a synopsis, right?
I do. It's actually, turns out it's one sentence. It's just a very complex sentence. After Farnworth's development of the smelloscope, Fry discovers a giant ball of garbage heading directly for New York, and it becomes a race against time to save the city. It's a very intense episode.
Did you guys all watch this episode? I did.
Oh, we sure did.
I did.
Are you guys, now, your first time we've had two guests on at a time, and first time that we have had people on that really, I wasn't even sure if we're actually have ever seen the show, period, ever.
Well, there's a lot about me you don't know. I watched the whole thing.
The whole series?
The whole series, yeah. But since it was on Netflix. But I can't remember the last time I watched the first season, though. So, and I only watched episode 8. I didn't watch it.
Yeah, I found myself skipping the first season a lot when I just randomly watch episodes. And since we started this podcast, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of good stuff in the first season. It's classic episodes, some of my favorite moments that I didn't think were that early in the series.
Yeah.
But enough about you. What about you, Sarah? What's your relationship with Futurama?
Well,
Hey, Sarah, how have you been?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm
Have I
good.
seen you since I moved home?
I don't think so.
Oh.
It's good to
Well,
see
it's
you.
good to see you. Sorry, I didn't
You both look about the same.
You're always living other places. How's that going?
Recently, so.
Are you here right now? Do you live in Cleveland right now?
I do. I
Okay.
do
She actually
live in Cleveland.
came back from Pittsburgh today to do this podcast.
Yep.
Wow.
Came straight here from
From
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. She went to Pittsburgh today and then drove back.
You didn't tell her we'd expense that, did you?
No, I didn't. Oh, absolutely not.
No, actually, leading up to tonight, I rewatched all of the episodes up until this episode 8. So, including episode 8, I did watch that twice, actually.
Twice?
So I did.
Did you watch it the first time and take notes and then watch it again and take more notes? Or did you watch it and then take notes?
I watched it once through, and then I watched all of the episodes prior to, and then watched it a second time and took notes.
Holy crap.
Dang.
Wow. That's,
Commitment.
yeah. Wait, that's
Way more effort than any of us
Yeah.
put into
God, you're
this.
such a nerd.
Am I the only person that's seen this episode twice recently?
No, I watched it on a couple days ago, and then I watched it today
Well, that
again.
explains why you bleeping out your job bleep.
I really like this episode. Like, this has been one of my favorite episodes so far this season, I think.
I think it's one of the stronger ones. Judging by my notes, I have a lot of notes, maybe the most I've taken because there were just a lot of little bits and pieces that were really funny.
I don't even know why I brought this thing. There's like no notes on here. I wrote down some words. I don't remember what they refer to.
Garbage.
I
It's
literally
garbage.
wrote.
I should have just brought garbage.
I attempted to take notes. I just wrote down the word Wernstrom and underlined it, and then didn't write anything.
Is it
else.
But I do that too because I'm like, oh, this is the first time he shows up in the series, and like he's a reoccurring character, and I'm like, we'll
Is
bring
it
that up.
Wernstrom or Wormstrom?
I think
Wern.
it was an N.
N.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think it's Ogden Wernstrom.
Yeah,
Correct.
from what I
that's
remember.
even more awkward. Like I wrote it down, but we're jumping ahead a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But it's
Let's
okay.
be linear here.
I mean, it starts right off with a good news, everyone. And I think every time he says it, we're getting closer to the actual, you know.
When he says it with gusto,
Yeah.
the way his catchphrase
And eventually
should
it will
sound.
be good news?
Eventually.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It sounds like it's, I mean, they're going to Ebola 9 to take a package.
the virus
there.
planet.
The virus. I did.
That was so great.
Yeah, I do
Um,
enjoy that.
You know, just the time and the place of that. It's still 1999 when this premiered, right, Tom?
Correct.
referencing Ebola and all the fun we've had with Ebola in the last couple years.
Yeah, it's so fun.
That's
About
pretty
Ebola.
great. I mean, what's a little hemorrhaging disease between friends?
I mean, if it was called something else, it might be more fun. If it was called I don't know,
If the disease
Spotty.
was called something else?
yeah, like spotty
Hantavirus.
Fun Ola.
phonola.
Fanola.
It was funola. He got a little case of the funola.
Just
could-
uncontrollable
that could be a new-
bleeding out of your eyes.
These are tears of happiness and blood.
That could be a new slushie at the funhouse.
Oh yeah.
This
There's
is
a little cartoon germ in it.
This is one of those things where Fry has his brief flash of fake smartness, where he says, "I love symposia,"
Yes.
which
Did you?
that
Is that actually plural for symposium?
yes,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah.
I was gonna look it up and then I forgot.
No, it was like, oh, I actually stopped to rewind it to see if he had said it wrong by saying "I love symposium," which could also work.
Right.
But for him to use it properly, I mean, because really, when has Fry ever gone to a symposium? Probably never. And yet,
Hey, what
he's
is a symposium?
enthusiastically loving it. Kind of like a conference, a gathering to discuss something, or maybe listen to a lecture, or talk about a topic. Once again, I couldn't make out what the intro cartoon was on the Jumbotron, but the little snip of it was just bizarre and weird.
It looked like
It looked like Elmer Fudd.
Elmer Fudd.
with his pants dropping or something.
Did you
though?
guys, Sarah and Rachel, did you guys notice that?
No, I don't think I really paid any attention to the intro.
Oh,
Is that one of
Sarah,
the things
I
you
missed
glom
that.
onto?
I don't know if we brought that up. Have you seen like Futurama? Have you before?
Yeah, definitely.
Like
She was going to talk
Would
about
you
it, and then
say-
you cut her off.
when earlier?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. So
Sorry, I just cut you off.
let's
right now.
get back to that real
You're
quick.
good. You're
So
good.
would you say you've seen a lot of it, or you've seen?
Yeah, I've seen a good bit of it.
Okay, like just when it's on or whatever, like
Yeah.
over the years.
I've watched a majority of it. I mean, nothing too recent. Leading up to this, I watched most of the first season, so it's kind of nice to just get a refresher on it. And I remembered how much I actually do enjoy this show.
The reason I asked, have you noticed that there's that intro and there's the little
Right.
cartoon always, like some random old cartoon or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on it. No.
I usually don't pay attention to it, but since we started doing this, and Pete always brings it up, and I've been trying to watch him, but I always just like gloss over that part.
yeah. Two things. One, I know what the cartoon is, and I'll explain that in a second. But also, I never noticed it before in any of the other episodes, but right before the cartoon and they crash in there's a Slurm truck that drives by.
I
And
missed that too.
I haven't gone back and looked and see if I missed it out of any of the other episodes.
Did you translate the alien sign in the intro credits yet?
No, I haven't.
All right.
I will. One of these episodes I
Yeah,
will.
we got time.
Based on, so you guys know, because you haven't listened to really any of the episodes, but we always look out for Slurm in any of the episodes,
Sure, you
and we
got
just
to.
noticed that.
I don't
noticed.
care.
No, Pete and I do.
I don't care.
Some of us have to pay attention.
The
to detail.
cartoon it's a corny concierto.
I might stop watching it.
That
is
word
what the,
concerto.
I like concierto.
It's a concierge.
The cartoon is a corny. Say the word.
Concerto.
There you go.
Yeah.
Is there an H in it?
No.
There is not. It's Italian.
Concerto. I
I
don't know.
know.
I'm not classy.
Don
Quixote?
yeah.
It is actually the first WB cartoon to ever feature more than 2 of their major characters in a starring role. It's got Elmer Fudd, Bugs Bunny, and Porky Pig.
So it was Elmer Fudd.
It wasn't. He's a composer or a conductor or whatever in that episode. And
Oh, I
his
remember
pants
that.
Falls down.
Yeah. That's a classic one. Rachel, did you watch a lot of old cartoons when you were a kid, like the Looney Tunes
No.
stuff?
I thought I did, but whenever stuff like this comes up, I'm like, yeah, I probably just was not paying attention when it was on in the background.
I feel like there was a time period in the, I don't know, like the mid 80s where the Looney Tunes were everywhere. Like they were on regular TV all the time, and then they were on Nickelodeon for a while, like all the time.
Yeah, I remember, like, I know Foghorn Leghorn and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, all this like old like black and white cartoon stuff, I don't think I've ever seen any of them. But I think they're like all public domain now, so people always use that. Like normally when you're watching TV and they're watching TV in the background, it's always like some weird public domain.
Some like
Yeah.
old yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even in, like the Looney Tunes was still on like prime time at some point, like during most of the 90s. I remember watching.
Yeah, it was like Nickelodeon.
Do you remember, Sarah? Like Sunday nights, like we used to watch Looney Tunes all the time.
Oh yeah, I love Looney Tunes.
My favorite episode of Looney Tunes is the one with the Martian that's like trying to set off the nuclear bomb by hammering on it, and Bugs Bunny tries to stop him.
Yeah,
that's all I remember about that episode, but I love that episode.
That classic trope.
That happened a lot back then.
It did. Did you know that King of the Road by, who sings that song? Who sings King of the Road?
Roger Miller?
No, Hank Williams.
R.E.M.?
Hank Williams. Hank Williams' King of the Road was banned from radio.
I'm pretty sure it was Roger Miller originally. Maybe Hank Williams covered it, but
No way, dude.
yeah.
That's a Hank Williams original. I'm not an expert.
You keep talking, and I'm going to check the pocket
Okay.
computer.
So, anyways, well,
check department.
either way, I don't want to argue with that about that, but that song was banned from the radio because at the time there were a lot of factories building. Tom, do you already know this?
No, I'm just
factoid?
listening.
He's actively listening to you.
There's a lot of factories building bombs for. Tom is like holding his ears out and listening as hard as he. Pete's right. It's Roger Miller. Well, anyways. No, wait. Yeah, no, it was King of the Road. Well, it was the Hank Williams version. Came out and was a single on the radio. There's a lot of there were a lot of bomb factories. A lot of fellows were in the factories building bombs, and they banned that song because it has the King of the Road. Now we have to pay for the license rights for that. But it has the little tap, kind of like that stupid.
And so people would like
the
hit
anvil
the
clock?
bombs
Because they
were
were
working
worried that somebody would tap on one of the bombs, and they would listen to the radio, in the factory, and yeah, that was.
Man.
Scary times.
Yeah.
Scary times.
Oh, the Cold War. I kind of
Yeah,
miss
thank
it.
They were
God we
working
don't have to
on-
worry about that
on,
Cold War
on,
anymore.
on
right?
bombs, just like the bomb at the end of the show that I ruined the linear part of by bringing it up,
spoiler
trying to bring
alert.
it back.
There's a bomb involved.
This whole podcast is going to be a bomb.
Oh.
No, it's not.
I mean, because Horchy's not on his game tonight, I don't think. He's up in his head. You need to get into the zone and feel the flow.
I thought talking about Hanks Williams was
Tom Hanks Williams?
yeah, was thanks you very much. Was
Oh my God.
And grinding
There-
to a halt. I didn't
So
realize
that
that
duck
Wernstrom
walk.
was a recurring character. So this is his first introduction.
Wernstrom.
I mean, he
He's a
really
real
seems
good
like a
villain.
dick. Yeah.
Like if you don't have the villain goatee, the next best is like the balding man
Receding
ponytail.
chin.
I think every guy with that hairstyle is a villain.
is
That's-
like in his own life at least.
yeah.
like Neil Young.
Oh yeah, for sure. I just listened to an interview with Neil Young and he seemed like a really nice guy, but that hair,
Yeah.
you know,
He wears a lot of hats.
for good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, balding isn't your fault, but ponytail is your fault.
Sarah, did you know that Tom is your brother?
Gotcha journalism.
Wait, what?
How come you guys have different last names?
Answer the question.
When they did get to the symposium for the awards ceremony, they were all drinking their fancy cocktails out of beakers, and I actually
I didn't notice
they're-
that.
They're
Ah.
not, they're not beakers. They're Erlenmeyer flasks.
some
there
of
we
them
go.
were some of them were Erlenmeyer flasks.
By the way, we have actually two like kind of scientists on the show right now. They're both
Batman's a scientist.
There were different. Okay,
Batman is also
can you,
my dad, so
Can you explain this then? Because is an Erlenmeyer flask any flat-based
Is he related to Mayor
conical?
Poopenmeyer?
Because there were the ones with the pyramidal base and then the sort of the smokestack coming out of the top. But then there's other ones that were just straight up conical flat base things.
it's just like
And I would call that a beaker.
does this
Is
podcast
that
have a
not
snooze
beaker?
button,
Or what in
like a
fact
snooze alert?
what determines a flask as Erlenmeyer or not Erlenmeyer?
the shape of it, like
the
a triangle
Erlenmeyer
shape.
would be like the
Yeah.
And if it was,
conical shape.
and if it was
Like just-
just,
That's just a beaker.
if it was, that's a beaker.
There were beakers on
There
there?
were
Oh,
beakers,
crap.
and the reason I
Or I guess those are
mentioned it.
volumetric flasks too.
You're not talking about the beaker from the Muppets, right? We're not talking about
I
that.
got
Okay.
served a
We could
cocktail
very
in a
well
beaker
be. Okay.
a couple weeks ago. That's was like, oh wow, this is we're living in the future.
Were you at some kind of
Science.
gastropub?
He was at the
No.
doctor.
I was playing video games with my daughter and taking the edge off.
Were you getting money for testing things out?
No, when I have to get things tested out, I usually have to pay after my insurance company takes, they shave off a little bit, but then the rest of it comes out of pocket.
That fish scuba thing was
Well,
my
before-
favorite thing.
Yeah, let's jump
Yes.
ahead.
No. Real quick, before that, the giant revelation is that Ron Popeil invented the technology
That's such a
Oh,
big
for-
scoop.
yeah.
for human heads to survive in jars.
I knew he was good. I didn't know he was that good.
I
My
bet
parents have one of those rotisserie ovens, like the Popeil rotisserie oven.
he has so much.
I think
What
it's
I don't.
gathering
Did he
time.
invent them or did he just put his name behind them? I never.
think
I
he-
don't
I'm
I'm
know.
sure he
No,
has a
a
couple
lot of
patents
it
early
is-
on, but
Yeah, a lot of his was just sort of.
Or is he like
flying-
Einstein, where he stole? all
You
of
know,
them?
George Foreman learned his whole grilling technique
Yeah, it
from
was like
Ron Popeil.
QVC before there was QVC. It was just Ron Popeil, I think.
There is
Awesome.
a story in my
way before
family
ShamWow.
about a Ron
before.
Popeil rotisserie oven that is like one of the most infamous. Like if you bring up a rotisserie oven at my mom's house,
Oh, no.
it's still, and this happened like 15 years ago. My stepfather for Christmas bought my mother like the deluxe rotisserie oven set, and he bought it for her because he wanted it, and he gave it to her for Christmas, and all hell broke loose. It was the most.
Is it like
was-
giving a vacuum for Christmas?
No, it was like
It's like giving a bowling ball engraved with the name Homer.
exactly, and it was just like the most. It was almost like a Tim and Eric sketch or something. Like it was so uncomfortable being in that room because just the shocked disappointment on my mother's face. Like, and I've done some things that have really shocked and disappointed my mother. This I feel
Is
took
the latest
cake.
right now is being on this podcast.
She doesn't know how to work podcasts. Before we get a little bit further on there were two little bits in the intro to the cocktail party. Bender asked for the fortified wine list.
All I wrote down was the hobo's delight.
The 71
Or
Hobo's
71
Delight.
Yes.
But then there was the 66 Thunder Chevets. And there was another, I rewound it twice to get those two, and I didn't have that much energy to take it back. But Thunder Chevets, I mean, there's something to that.
So this is where we find out that Farnsworth and Wormstrom have known each other for 100 years, 99 years, and X amount of days, etc.
So this is something I was thinking about today because I didn't make a note, but it occurred to me like here's my actual reality science question of the day.
Oh God,
I know,
these are the
right?
worst. Pete
I'm
asked
gonna-
these questions, or you'll hear it. Here,
Oh,
check
yeah.
this out.
Just
Go
wait.
ahead, Pete.
He tries
right.
to. Just listen.
So we can assume or infer from the exposition in the episode that the professor is like 150 years old.
149, actually.
Okay, 149. Wormstrom is about 100. They're both, tooling around, akin to someone maybe in their 70s or 80s. The professor
yeah.
maybe even the 90s. Now,
For that, whatever the life expectancy is.
but this is 1,000 years in the future, and with all of the technology available, nowadays they're talking about extending the human life to
Yeah.
150 years or so. Now, I
I
mean,
believe I'm going to be the man who lived 150
You're gonna
Yeah, I
live
think
150
isn't
years?
it Elon Musk who said like the first person to live to 150 has already been born?
Yes.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he says a lot of crazy shit.
And it's Chris
But he's
Traeger
usually
from
right.
Parks and Recreation.
Sometimes. Watch him try and land a rocket consistently and see
I
how
will
that
not.
goes.
I will not.
But doesn't that
What
seem
kind of
sort
name
of...
is Elon Musk? It sounds like a
It's-
crustacean.
He's from
It's
the
foreign.
future.
It's a foreign name. That's all you need to worry about. He's gonna...
I wish
they're
he
gonna
was
build
around.
a wall around
like,
him.
if he was around while Futurama's out, there was no doubt he would have been
Right.
on that show.
Well, he would have been a Ron Popeil
For sure.
head.
But
Elon Musk sounds like a fragrance that
totally. Well, it's like 3 letters off.
Jean
from a
Ralphio
fragrance.
would have invented
like
for Parks and Rec.
I mean,
Dennis Feinstein.
there's his brother Jovan, who actually is a fragrance entrepreneur. But all I'm saying is at 1,000 years in the future, you would think that 150 years would be a conservative lifespan. That they would have mastered, especially if they've got cryogenics down with this whole Ron Popeil thing. Doesn't that? I mean, okay, so
You're
the pressure's
playing
150.
with genetics. Like the human body is designed to live for X amount of years, just like your hair only grows so far on your arms or whatever and then stops. If you can extend it at all, that's amazing.
Have you ever heard about hacking the genome?
Pete,
Yes.
there are episodes that answer a lot of the questions you have right now. That
Okay.
up and
Is this
come out
one of
throughout
them?
the season.
I'm curious. I don't.
There's a
all
bunch of them.
That's all I need to hear.
There's an
You can
episode
keep
about-
saying that to me until we get to the end.
You should just
I'll-
lie to him
that's
every
fine.
time. Like,
No.
oh, it comes up in a later episode.
Number one thing about Cartoon Logic
Porchy,
is
why are you always late for the podcast? Oh, it comes up in a later episode.
the number one thing for Cartoon Logic is you can run across air as long as you don't look down.
What about water?
No,
You can
I don't know
reverse
about
scuba
water.
dive though. So
Yes.
that's
Speaking
not
of
bad.
which, why haven't we haven't
Wait.
even gotten to
Cinnamon the
What,
fish.
get to what?
Oh, sorry.
No, what?
fish?
No, wait. Before that, I have a problem. So they're showing inventions, and they wasted like 8 seconds of my time with the weird looking guy with the beanie cap on and the little propeller on it.
Oh, yeah.
And he turns it with his hand and raises up. I understand it's just like a quick like thing in between or whatever. But Futurama, don't you feel like the show is better than that? Like, don't you think they
It's
could have
their
had
first
like?
season. They're still
I
finding
know,
their stride.
but
I thought
shouldn't
that
we
was
hold
great.
them to
I
standards?
really like the.
You liked that. The
Yeah.
guy
Yes.
that looked like Ronald McDonald's.
How ridiculous! Okay, I mean,
Why was he cranking it with his hand?
But he says it right when Ron Popeil gives the award to Wordstrom. He says it like, I'm basically handing this award to him. So it was kind
To
of
who?
to Wordstrom when
Yeah.
he won.
He
for
made
his
it-
Fish.
yeah.
No, not
For
the fish
scuba dive.
thing.
Right, but he's saying I handed it to
Oh,
him
because all the other ones
in
were so.
comparison,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
Every
So you have-
other invention was so bad,
Right.
Oh.
like that hat. That
Oh, okay.
even
Alright.
if
Wow.
Wordstrom came up with a pretty crappy
See, she watched it
invention,
twice.
that
You just blew my mind right off its
had-
hinges.
How did the hat
They-
stay on that guy's head?
Science.
I
I didn't
that
see any
too.
straps.
Science.
I thought that too.
Was it
That was probably the
Velcro?
invention. Yeah.
Maybe some
Suction.
kind of a hair weave.
suction.
Could be a weed.
It could. I thought suction. It just sucks on your head.
Would you need to have your head shaved then?
His wasn't though. Didn't
I-
he have curly hair on the
Well,
end? Maybe he had like a monk.
yeah,
haircut.
I was
Maybe he was
thinking the
bald-
monk-
balding
the
with a
monk
ponytail. My note about the reverse scuba suit is that it was total bullshit.
I thought about.
I wasn't a fan of it
What?
either.
That
No.
was the. It's like the cutest. It's like one
It's
of the
a-
top
it's
10 cutest
ador-
thing
it
that's
is
ever happened on
adorable.
Futurama.
It wouldn't
That's
be-
all you need to know.
It wouldn't be
It's
cute if a
adorable.
fish wasn't named Cinnamon, but it was.
It
So that's a
was.
winning
all that
invention.
did
But it
was,
opened its
add
mouth and
one
fetched
to
a stick.
1 point to 1,000 cute points. I don't.
Yeah.
And then he tells it to sit, and it won't sit. It hits it with a piece of paper like a dog. It's
I
like,
did not care for it at all.
I thought it was one of
Well,
the
you're-
cutest.
Tom,
You're
I
parts.
could
all
watch you
kids.
watch Futurama and just laugh and talk about what's happening while it's happening.
I was watching it today, and my roommate was sitting there and just there, and I was just giggling.
And I bet he said, "This is total
making
bullshit,
notes.
too."
I almost think like the more
We're the Illuminati brothers in this episode.
the more impressive thing with this invention is not the reverse scuba suit; it's getting the fish trained to hop into that suit.
Yeah.
Fish
Maybe there's
don't
like
have
That's pretty
ears.
amazing.
Maybe there's like a brain
How did
component,
he,
like
yeah,
a brain
how did he
link
get the fish
component.
to listen? To,
Exactly.
Maybe he can feel the vibrations and translate them.
Like, is it like the Funky Bunch?
Who?
Good
Just
vibration.
feel feel the vibrations.
Yes, Pete. Just like that.
Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get to have Mark Wahlberg on this someday. We can do some lines with him.
He does them. He does a ton of podcasts.
He does. He's all over the place.
You guys want to do some more?
What's going on?
Look good, feel good. I think the high point of the whole symposium was that when Farnsworth goes up to do his presentation, he
I know
has
what
an
you're going to say. I
overhead
hope it's
projector.
my favorite.
The
Yeah.
overhead projector.
Yeah.
It's never.
And they still have that 1,000 years in the future.
Oh, Jesus Christ. This
remember-
again? I thought you were going to say the real
No.
favorite part that you're
Wait,
supposed to have.
no. Before you say that, let's talk about this projector because have you ever put a napkin on a projector?
You
It will
can't,
not put it
no.
up on
No.
the screen. I
So
don't
that
get
means
it.
that they've advanced the technology of
See, there you
projectors.
go, Pete.
There are actually some pretty sweet projectors that are more like cameras.
There are
Yeah.
now.
We
Not
basically
like-
have those at work.
But
yeah.
I
The
took a
transparent
That's true.
Here.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
took
like a zoom in thing.
It did. It looked just like the the transparencies with the the wet markers.
when
that
we were
used-
back in
yeah.
school.
the lowest grade that they could possibly imagine, an A minus minus,
Yeah.
which just completely skewers the whole grade inflation
That
crisis.
bell curve.
Which
yeah.
we jumped ahead a little bit. He gets an A minus.
Wernstrom gets an A
Wernstrom
minus.
gets
That's
an
why
A
they're
In the flashback.
rivals.
Why they're
In the flashback to
enemies.
when they were when
But that's why they're
Professor
rivals.
Farnsworth was his
Because
For
the
99
professor was his
years.
professor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Later on, they up the ante by making it an A minus minus.
But the worst grade they can possibly
yeah.
imagine.
For his
This is
smelloscope.
what, like a 90?
But before that, my favorite line from the show, from this episode, was Professor Farnsworth is like, "Oh, I have a great invention. It's going to be this death clock." Blah blah blah. They get there, and Wernstrom comes up to him, and he's like, "I hope this isn't as lame as your last year when you made that horrible death clock." And he's like, "Oh, last year, so he forgot, that he did a death clock before." And he's like, "Oh, I have to come up with something else on the spot right now. Maybe some kind of death clock."
Death clock. Yeah.
I feel like we skipped over a very important part about the death
Oh,
clock.
yes.
So Fry actually sticks his finger into
Oh
the
yeah.
death
Good
clock,
point.
And Bender makes a comment alluding to the fact that Fry doesn't have much longer to live.
Doesn't he say
But-
something like,
Some like
"I get
No,
his DVD
they
player," or
all
something
look
like
at
that,
him
or-
like, it's
Oh,
a
yeah,
shame. But
yeah.
Bender asks for his CD player.
CD player. Yeah, that's it.
Which
which is also
Pete, why didn't you
pretty
bring that
hilarious.
up yet?
I don't remember that
CD
part.
player.
But-
But I also think it's interesting that even though Fry does stick his finger in the death clock, he doesn't actually read it.
what I was getting at before when I was asking if you would stick your finger in the death clock.
Oh, yeah, good-
because Fry stuck his finger in the death clock, but he didn't actually know everyone else saw it. So
Yeah, so
like
he
if you
has
stuck
no
it in there
idea.
and everyone else saw when you were gonna die, would you do it? Like you would know that you were gonna die. I don't know.
Pete,
It
is that why you
depends
have a
on-
daughter, because you stuck your finger in a death clock? Is that how that works? I don't know how babies are made.
No, there was quite a bit of statistics involved in the birth of my daughter. We don't need to get into that right now.
The professor invents the smelloscope, but he invented it last year. He comes up with the idea at the symposium for this year, but
Then he
ends
remembers
up
that he-
remembers that he invented it last year.
It seems pretty unsanitary. Like you yoink those little tubes up into your nose and everybody's slapping it on.
Yeah, he wipes it off eventually. At one
It's
point,
still
he
pretty
does wipe
gross.
it off, but it's still pretty gross.
Well, how would like somebody like Zoidberg use it?
Well, he's not a character yet, is he?
Oh,
yeah.
He's
the
in
second
one-
episode.
Oh,
And
my
he's
God,
in one
okay.
scene.
I was very upset
and
that
we'll
he
get
wasn't
to
in this
we'll
episode.
get no we'll get to where he is.
Yeah,
He's
he's
in
only
one
in, like,
part
a
of this
second.
episode, and I wrote it
Really?
down. We'll talk about it.
Oh, thank God. Guys, I feel so much better
But
already.
I like how
Don't worry, we got it. We got everything. You're in a net
is a safe
of
space.
supports. Yeah.
But okay, when Fry is like with the smelloscope and he's smelling around too, he's going so far with like a telescope, like it's going like millions of like light years of he's just bouncing around, and then all of a sudden somehow he just hits this
the smelliest.
the smelliest thing in the universe.
And
Which blows out the funkometer.
Billy West grossed out sound effects are just perfect. It's like
I like the reference that they put, basically New York had so much garbage that they didn't know what to do with it. So they put it on a barge and sent it out to sea. And it kind of hopped around all over the water.
for what, like 52 years or something?
50 years.
50 years?
Yeah, but no country would accept it, not even that really filthy one.
Which
You know the one, yeah.
You know
you
the
know
one.
the one. We all know the one.
Until eventually they decided
To
with
use their mob connections.
Their mob connections to launch it up into space.
Eventually, I guarantee the mob connections will allow us to, like, anyone to get a rocket to space.
up.
Hey, Tom, is this the first episode Morbo's in?
Yes.
I love the Morbos.
Yes.
Morbo and Linda's first
Yeah.
appearance in this also.
What did they
That's
say?
her name? It's Linda?
Yeah, she's
Yes.
a total Linda.
Oh, my
We're-
God. No, she does look like a Linda.
We're
I
jumping
never-
ahead, though, aren't we?
Oh, yeah. We're jumping all over the place.
And the reason I say that is I have a note saying the future is disgusting, and then I have my typical Fry is so dumb.
Because the 19th century copied us.
Oh,
That's my
that
note.
that was my favorite Fry line in this episode, and one of his best.
And after my Fry is so dumb, though, because on every episode, I have to mention that Fry is so dumb. There's usually a point where I just bottom out and go, I can't. I just
he
can't
has his
deal with it
moments
anymore.
for sure.
But they go to Mayor Poopenmeyer.
Do you guys know anybody named Linda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah?
We work
You work with Linda?
Linda with a Y.
Is she Lynda?
Oh yeah, she's a
I
wild
thought,
card.
I thought it was Linday.
So, all right. That's
Linday.
like wizard level Linda. Like,
Oh yeah,
She is.
is
she's
she
Linda to
is
the
she
max.
a Linda? Okay, all right.
I know a Linda with a
Smart
Y. I
lady.
know a Linda with an I.
I have an Aunt Linda. Tom, any Lindas?
I've never met a Linda in my life.
Huh. I don't think it's as common of a
Wait,
name as it
no,
used to be.
that's not
yeah,
true.
I'm pretty sure you have because we
I
know
have.
the same one.
I have. I know.
Oh,
several
all right.
Lindas.
Okay. Well, that was a close one, you guys. All right. So, anyways, Morbo or whatever we're talking about.
We're talking about Mayor Poopenmeyer,
Oh,
who
yeah.
I am
Yeah.
convinced would have been Phil Hartman.
Yeah, that would have been
Absolutely
yeah,
100% a Phil Hartman
Oh my
character.
God.
I did not think
The
of that.
Matt Groening
Thanks for
universe
making me
really
sad, Pete.
Yeah,
took a dent when he died. Ugh.
it's a real bummer.
I think my favorite part about when the group goes to meet with Mayor Poopenmeyer to let him know about this garbage ball that's in space is that he kind of makes a reference to making sure it's not a scientific fraud like global warming and secondhand smoke.
Oh, that was great, especially the global warming one
Yeah.
because that was such a joke back then.
Yeah.
So, like even when that episode premiered in 1999 and I was in high school, I was like, yeah, that global warming thing that sounds like a big farce.
we
And
still
then-
had polar bears back then.
With
really
dicks.
cool.
Polar bears still had dicks on them because global warming makes polar bears' dicks fall off. They break off.
Guys, this
true.
is not funny.
It's true. Look it up.
I'm a big fan of polar bears.
Oh wait, is
I don't
that
wanna
true?
talk
I
about
was
this.
laughing because I thought you were just saying
No, it's true.
some
No, you're
random thing from your
laughing at
brain.
the fate of
Oh
polar
my
bears.
God! I take back that laugh. I'm
there's-
sorry.
Take it back. Take it back right now.
There's
Oh,
a
I take it
bone
back.
that has become too brittle because it's a whole
They have a
thing.
bone in
It's
their
a whole
Oh.
thing.
in their
Yeah.
Oh.
bear penis.
Oh.
Is this real?
Yes.
I didn't think
Yeah.
I would say bear penis tonight, and yet here we are.
You never know what's going to come up.
Where were we?
So they wanted to blow it up Armageddon style, this giant ball of garbage, but they couldn't because it's just too damn gooey.
I saw
It was
Armageddon
such
in the
a
theater
great
the day it came out.
distinction.
Did you notice the hologram when it blasts through the garbage and then it like breaks a window or something?
No.
Yeah, you
That's
hear,
awesome.
No.
You hear like a glass shatter as it goes through the hologram of the.
Was that like Hermes
I was
getting
just gonna
carried
say
off
that,
by the
like-
bird?
I do love that scene.
Yeah, that's
The
great.
holograms are pretty
I
great.
like that one of the things people were throwing out in the video that Sarah brought up was AOL floppies. That was a something that when it was happening at the time when like every day there'd be
For all
five-
you young whippersnappers out there,
Oh yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I was just gonna say for all you young whippersnappers.
Oh, I thought
out
you were
there,
going to explain it. All right, for our-
AOL floppy disks.
I'd like to think that out of our two listeners, that one of them is probably pretty young. When the internet
There's
first
a
started,
12-year-old listening to this for sure.
Or like if Dan listens to it at home, like his infant might hear it too, and he has no idea what floppy disks are.
so when the internet first started interneting its way into our hearts, America Online. That's still a thing, right? People have like
Yes.
an
It's
AOL
sti-
account.
Most
Amazing
people's
that it's
grandmas that
still
are
a
still
thing.
alive
Trade
have
habit.
AOL.
All of our moms still love AOL.
My mom doesn't know what the internet is
they would
yet.
send you in the
Still?
mail. They'd send you like
I'm not gonna tell her.
several times
She
a
might
day.
find out your
You'd
dad is
get
Batman.
a floppy
can
disk
never know.
to sign up for AOL, to sign up for the internet using their service. You'd get them in the mail.
You'd open a day. How many times did you get floppy disks a day?
I'd open a sandwich and there'd be a floppy disk in it from AOL.
Do we need to go way back and explain what a floppy disk is?
A floppy disk,
save icon.
A floppy disk. Yeah,
icon.
it's the picture on the save icon. That's basically the only touchstone that someone who
Tom
never grew up
dropped
with
his
them
editing
is.
pen. We should give him a break. I'm trying to get that cat to come over here.
First of all,
We're all trying to get that cat to come over here.
the transmission from Neptune.
He
Yes.
doesn't want to.
No, we're just gonna skip ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
With all the gagging and the gross out noises and the
Yes, yeah,
and then it ends there. And
it's just more Billy West gross out noises, and he does it so well.
Well, it's supposed to be like the grossest thing they've ever smelled. So.
Oh yeah,
That's-
they
Could
definitely
you imagine what it
represented
smells
Dude,
like?
Watching
No,
it,
I
obviously
don't
you're
wanna
not
know.
smelling it, but you can imagine.
My
from
cat.
that noise. Yeah, like
One of
Oh
my
my God,
Fry-
we were just in line at a concert festival, and the smell of hot garbage was
It was
wafting over us, and we
hot,
all almost
rotting
threw up on
garbage,
ourselves.
and it was
Were you
oh, well,
the worst
so
thing.
were you guys watching Puddle of Mud?
in your
that
No,
why?
we were just waiting outside
They-
to see Luda.
They were in New
your-
Jersey.
It was
in your
actually
profession,
Nickelback.
Yes.
we're not going to tie it to anything specific, but
Just generally.
there was a television show called Crime Scene Investigators.
Ah,
CSI.
yes.
And you
on the
you kind of
CBS channel.
yes, for like 75 years, and you work in that field.
Correct.
Maybe we don't know. Edit that out.
Where you
Allegedly.
allegedly you fold and iron Gil Grissom's lab coats, but in the
We
course
get well
of
compensated.
yes, in the course of your jobs, do you have to?
Are you
go
guys on that
to-
show? Is that what Pete's alluding to?
Yes.
We're not actually, we signed a non-disclosure, so. I
Fair
have
enough.
your
They
guess as
can't
good as mine.
confirm or deny.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
I
that's
just
a great
wanted to
fake
ask
name,
about
Rachel
smells.
Keaton.
I
It
do.
sounds so common.
I do have a lot of sunglasses.
do you have a lot of
Um,
smells that you've
We
encountered?
do. So
Yes.
there's a particular case that I worked where it was probably one of the most foul-smelling things I've ever smelt.
How do you fight the smells?
You don't.
You can't.
You don't do
can't,
any kinda, like,
camphor up with the
You-
little
I mean-
capsules in your
Vicks, or is
nose
that-
or any
A
kind
lot
of
of
like
mouth
vapor
breathing, but you
rubs?
also taste it too.
Do you
You
like
get used to
Do
it?
you like menthol cigarettes and stick them in your
We
nose?
smoke heavily, yeah.
I mean, there's masks.
Incense?
And there's
Patchouli, or is that worse?
Just eat something really garlicky and work it after lunch.
I always like
Chew
the story, Sarah, that when you were you were like interning.
I was interning,
or,
yeah. So I was interning for a police department one summer, and we were in a automobile garage, repo area where all of the cars that had been towed are kept.
Was it
And
inside or outside?
It was
Stop
out-
interrupting the story, Tom.
It
Go
was
ahead.
outside during the summer in the blazing hot Pittsburgh sun. So we were investigating a car that had been involved in an auto theft. So we were looking at a specific car. But while looking at this car, we noticed a particular smell that was terrible.
Did it blow out the funkometer?
It blew out the funkometer. It was pretty bad. We isolated where it was coming from, figured out that it was coming from a trunk of a particular car, a couple cars down from where we were working. This particular smell smelled like something we were very familiar with, decaying flesh. Yes, it's a smell that you will recognize and never be able to get out of your nose. We had the crew open up the trunk of the car just in case there happened to be some sort of body in this trunk. And what we found was actually just old groceries. So what happened was this car was towed with groceries in it, and the bags were full of raw, rotting chicken.
That's the worst smell. Oh god.
So definitely a smell that I still smell to this day, 5 years later. So
I wish you could activate the anti-smell device.
Are you unable to eat chicken?
So when they're on the garbage planet, was it?
Well, heading to the garbage planet.
It's
the reason
not
I
a
brought
planet. It's just a
it's
garbage
like a,
ball.
It's like a comet.
Oh my God, you're not a planet.
It's
so
like a garbage
anyways,
asteroid.
When the reason I brought up Armageddon is when Fry and Leela and Bender are marching in their spacesuits.
yeah.
Leela and Fry both have the helmets under their arms, and Bender has
Terrible
his head under
joke.
his arm.
Terrible
It
joke.
was that's
my only thing with
better
this
than
whole
your rectum. I would say.
Nope.
Disagree.
Nope.
Disagree.
First of all, with the whole Armageddon like spoof on this. I'm really mad there wasn't an animal cracker scene
Yeah,
with somebody
I
like,
thought about
like
that too.
Fry playing with animal crackers or something, like an Armageddon where Ben Affleck plays with animal crackers up Liv Tyler.
That was in the Don't Want to Miss a Thing music video,
Yes.
if you guys remember.
Oh, I remember. That
Right.
brought Aerosmith back from the dead, and now Steven Tyler is a zombie, and he hosts a reality singing show or whatever.
How come they didn't put their helmets on when they were on the garbage ball?
They didn't? Wow.
I put a note about that.
No,
Oh,
they
did
didn't.
it have an
And
atmosphere?
this
That's
is
crazy.
like the first time
and
that
it's the smelliest thing that's ever been
Exactly.
smelled.
Well,
You'd
they
think
no,
there'd
but
be
they
some
put
kind
on
of
that.
breather.
They put on that smellometer. What was it called?
It's the anti-smell device.
Anti-smell
because-
Oh, I missed that. Okay.
Because they
The
almost
smell-
they hit turbulence
Well, that
on
makes
their
sense.
way to the garbage
yeah.
ball, and they're like,
No, in the ship though, but not when
yeah,
they.
in the ship. That was so weird. Like, I didn't really get what the joke was there when they
It
were
made
like,
a
it was like
sound, and it was supposed to
then
be
it was fine.
like an air freshener. It was another stupid joke, just as stupid as Bender's head off. This episode, Futurama has a lot of like easy jokes, but I think it's part of the charm of the show. Like, they're filling 23 minutes.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of genius moments on that show in 140 episodes, and it's okay. I'm on board, and I will go, oh, when they have like a dumb joke or whatever. It's fine. It's good.
Then they're on the garbage ball, and it's the first Simpsons crossover reference
Yes.
ever in the
I
series.
have written down, Bart, do we talk about all of this question mark?
Yeah.
Should we say
There's-
this?
real
There's
quick.
Hypodermic Ridge.
Spock.
Yes.
Spock.
well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the
Fry,
plates.
One of the many
yeah,
Spock.
Hold on, Sarah. Yes, go ahead.
Fry. So when they land on the garbage ball, they kind of walk off it, and they're talking about how this is all garbage, and of course this is Fry's time. This is all
Right.
stuff
Which
he's very
you just watched the
familiar with.
first season up until that point,
Yes.
right? That's the second time they've kind of brought that up, that he, loves that time period
That
he's
time.
from.
Well,
yeah,
the episode where he is looking for the anchovies.
Yeah.
He's all about.
He's got
his
that
time.
apartment
Yeah,
with
he
all
w-
the 90s stuff.
That's what
and,
makes
yeah.
him happy. So of course the first thing he does is look around this garbage ball and finds treasures. I mean, he finds a Beanie Baby doll. He finds the
It's a tiger.
Mr. Spock collector's plate, and then the Bart Simpson doll. And when you pull the string, it says "Eat my shorts," and of course Bender eats his shorts and makes another reference to the Simpsons when he does his.
I don't know if you knew this, but we're
shorts.
surrounded by Beanie Babies right now.
You know what? The Futurama, like all the animators, the commentaries on like all like the DVD stuff, they talk about like how much they demanded of the animators to do a bunch of stuff that
Yeah.
hadn't been done before to like get the detail. And
They
the
did a lot of
3D
like first time
technology
things
and
for especially the 3D stuff.
It's really cool. And then they get onto the place on the garbage ball by the what is it? Hypodermic ridge, and by the AOL discs.
Which I also think it's funny that Fry gets stuck in one of those like.
Oh, that's
plastic
another one of my
rings.
favorite Fry moments. Like,
It kind of goes into how Fry's dumb, but also
Absolutely.
but also on how just garbage ball that garbage ball actually is. You know, like it's
There's a real garbage ball in the middle of the Pacific right now.
exactly
Yeah.
it's
When did
almost
we find
delving
out about
into-
that?
did you know that?
Like, was that part of the public consciousness in 1999? The
When what?
garbage ball?
It probably
Like
wasn't
the-
around in
that you
1990.
No,
don't
it definitely
throw away
was.
those-
Are you sure?
Yeah, because like it's like decades of just shit we've been throwing in the ocean.
I would
It's
think
all
there's like an
caught up.
exponential growth that's happened though to create that dead zone.
Did you guys know that
It has
those?
to do with the currents, though. Like I don't see. I think.
But we
it's-
keep throwing more garbage into it.
well, I think it's
And
It's like
as
the size of
developing-
Texas, right?
Yeah.
I want to know what Sarah has to say.
it's
You don't want to talk about the garbage island.
well, it's comical because it's funny that Fry's the one that gets stuck in this, but it's also relatable. I mean, it delves into a whole deeper issue of
where we've all
where
been.
Yeah.
we've been here in 2016
And all that
with
crazy
with
six-pack
Then and then
packaging
now
with,
too,
like, the-
especially like seeing that,
Yeah.
it's like,
The
oh
plastic
crap, because it's a
caps.
lot worse than it
Turtle
was
that
back
has,
then.
Like, the boat in.
Did you guys know that those six-pack plastic things cut off polar bear penises?
Well, you know what?
They don't
you
cut
know what
them off,
they've
they
done
just
You
now.
keep trying to make the polar bear
True.
penis as a joke, and it's not funny.
It is
really
now. I was sad like
Really?
a half an hour ago. It's funny now.
Every time a iceberg shrinks, a polar bear dick breaks off.
They've made
Well, now I'm sad again. You made it sad.
And an Italian guy pretending to be an American native cries one single tear.
Italian?
I thought he was Mexican.
Yeah.
Was he
no,
Italian?
the the old 60s commercial about littering
Yeah.
that had the culturally insensitive Native American guy. He was actually Italian.
Okay.
Italian.
Yeah.
That's fine. The
Thank God
message
we
is
got to the bottom of
still
that.
just as important.
It's about the same.
They've
Guys,
actually made those rings around 6-packs of beers and things biodegradable and
Are all of
compostable.
them now? For
A
real?
lot. They're moving in that direction because they know how destructible to our environment they actually
You
are.
can also
so.
buy.
Are they?
Yeah.
Are they?
Haven't you seen those turtles with like the?
Oh no, I've seen those.
They
But I
are.
mean,
They
oh
are.
god, I have seen those.
They are.
You can also buy a 6-pack of fish in those now. You just come right in the grocery store.
I
Just
thought
pick
there
it
was
up.
only 4 guys in that band.
No, that's like
oh,
it's
that
like 5
band.
or 6 people.
Guys,
Speaking of
It's like a
smells,
rotating cast.
we only have 25 minutes.
Left.
I mean, 15 minutes.
Okay.
I mean,
H
5
4
minutes.
minutes.
I mean, 6 H minutes.
Oh, it's 6 H. I wrote down H4.
It's
God,
6
I was
H
so
minutes.
tired
It's
last
6
night when
H
I watched
minutes.
this.
when they get home after the failed mission and there's the big banner with
Well,
welcome.
first of all,
Failures.
Bender tries to throw the bomb off, and it hits a meteor, and it just comes right back down.
Pete, would you like to point out how that can't happen or anything?
It would have just like dissolved in that.
No,
moment.
I just like that
But
it just
it's
happened to
great.
be a meteor.
I like that
passing
it
by.
happened. He didn't try it again. It was like, I guess another comet will pass by.
And the fact he could throw it that far, but he kept passing it back to people.
But the banner that said "Welcome home, losers."
Well, it
That-
said
yeah, that was great.
heroes crossed
Yeah, crossed out with
losers.
I mean,
Hey, why did I write down garbage can?
Oh, because
Good question.
Oh, yeah, so when they obviously
Where
they,
am
they
I?
fail their mission, so they come back to Earth because the bomb that they were supposed to plant on this garbage ball didn't work.
because the
well,
professor
the bomb
Professor-
worked. The professor
well,
just
Yeah.
built,
Professor
it, built
just
it
built
badly.
it incorrectly.
and he pulls out the directions, and they're upside
Upside
down. He's
down.
like, I don't understand.
Does that explain why? Did I write down? Does it say garbage con?
No, Fry went into garbage can, so
He did?
we're trying to figure out what's going on right now.
Did they dump the garbage can upside down? What?
I have nothing about
Probably
a garbage
that's-
can.
I wrote down button, and I thought it said butter.
Okay, no, the button part is one of my favorite parts of this episode.
It's such a great Fry
So-
moment.
Just to kind of recap, they need to figure out how to destroy this garbage ball.
But first,
No. We're jumping all over the place.
Oops.
We'll do this, and
There's
then
like
we'll go back to
there's
that.
like 4 minutes
No,
left in the
stop.
episode.
Wernstrom
Okay.
comes in after Farnsworth.
Well, they need to
after
figure out.
Farnsworth failure.
I was
Okay,
right.
all right,
they,
get there.
They come back as a
my
failure of
God.
destroying this garbage ball and need to figure out what to do next. So they do go to Wordstrom because he's the go-to guy. Because obviously,
Then he makes a
Farnsworth.
bunch of demands.
yeah,
They got
Yeah,
him in
what
that
his
bit.
demands? Why does he want?
he wants tenure for one thing.
But why does he
Which,
want
as a
5
professor,
graduate
is great.
students and 3 of them need to be Chinese?
At least 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, after Wordstrom runs away, after getting tenure and his 3 of 5 Chinese graduate assistants, they decide that the best way to get rid of this garbage ball is to shoot something at it that's similar.
An equal
yeah,
equal
right, yes.
size
Right.
ball of garbage.
Yes.
But it starts raining down
Well,
when they're trying to decide. The garbage starts raining down. The only scene with Zoidberg.
Another
is-
Armageddon reference. The cheeseburger like goes through the building and stuff.
Yes, but a fish bone falls on the ground and Zoidberg runs up to it and like
Just
looks
eats it.
at it and then just eats the
it.
fish bone.
How did I miss that?
Yeah.
That's the
only
only scene
scene
that
with
is
him.
with
I
him.
forgot about
I
it
love
too.
you,
Yeah.
Zoidberg. If you're
I think it's
listening.
just breaking apart. Like
it is. It's
you
just
know,
shooting off.
the
Yeah.
atmosphere.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
some of it is getting
yeah.
to the
Also,
atmosphere earlier.
When they're talking about recycling, and Leela says like that sandwich you're eating is made from pieces of old sandwich or whatever, that sticks me out so much.
When I was watching it today, my roommate, when we were watching it, that party goes, "Oh God, that's so gross."
I'm
Like
very
that-
pro recycling, but I don't want my sandwich to be made of old sandwich.
Like, I don't want my AOL floppy disk sandwich
But I
to
like
have
how
recycled AOL
Robot-
floppy disk
no,
in
I
it.
need a fresh
That's
AOL
the thing,
disk.
though, when
Yeah.
they decide, like, we need to destroy this garbage ball in space with an equal garbage ball, and they're like, well, we don't have garbage. We recycle everything.
But robots are made from old beer cans, and beer cans are made from old robots. It's
It's
a
so
mind-blowing.
it's just
What
a
came
zero
first,
loss
you guys?
system. It's fine.
The beer can.
Why
or the
can't we do
robot?
that now? Why can't we have one
Because
thing
we
make
don't
something
have
else?
robots.
Well,
Not the same.
We
way.
do. I mean,
there's subsidies,
I
a lot of mafia intervention.
spent a week in San Francisco last summer and at a music festival, and they were all about composting. All of their paper plates, their plastic cups, plastic utensils, everything was
Porta potties. It was all just a compost pile.
it's all compostable. so
Wait a
really-
second. You went to a music festival in San Francisco, and now you're going to tell us about composting? That's never mind.
No. Where are you going with that?
I think
I wanna
you guys-
follow that
hang
logic
on.
They
train.
really are.
I
in,
was-
in the city of San Francisco, you are required to compost.
I thought you were. No, never mind. I was going to.
I just want everybody to take a step back and think about a sandwich made up of other parts of sandwiches.
That's all I got out of this episode, and I love this episode,
No,
but I
but-
can't get past it.
Look, you're all hung up on it like it's a bad thing. But,
But if you think about the technology, what if they?
what if you had
What if you have bread that doesn't
but
mold?
You gotta look at the big picture. What if you had like a half a McChicken and a half a
Back to
Big
the chicken.
Mac,
Uh-huh.
No,
and you stacked them together and made a new sandwich?
Dou-
Like
double
a
meat
parcel.
palace.
No.
Yes.
Chicken
no,
act.
Yeah.
no,
Exactly.
no.
That would
No,
effectively make the
'cause-
decision that they're
Because
talking
what you're doing,
about.
if you're taking it from pieces of old sandwich, it's not good sandwiches. It's just
This
gross
is- no,
bad
no, no, no,
sandwiches.
no. You're
Somebody
you're-
threw that sandwich out.
But
Or,
a
like,
You don't know that they
recycled
threw it
it.
out. It could have
For a
just been
reason.
all of the leftovers from
But
the
in-
Planet Express lunchroom.
I'm always
Well-
very concerned about food freshness, so that would be a major adjustment period. That's all I'm saying. If
But
I were to
I-
fall into a cryogenic chamber and get frozen for 1,000 years, I would have a
can
hard time
assure
eating
you.
old
Here's
food.
the thing, though.
They tell you you're supposed to
Here's
like
the
eat
thing, though. Are we
leftovers within
talking
3
about
days.
it? Is it happening on a molecular level? Because that's what happens in the original Star Trek.
That's
the
the thing, we
replicator
don't know.
is
Well-
just them breaking down the molecules from the
Oh,
waste,
Yeah, and
all
how-
the waste.
How do we
There
know
was-
that technology in the year
there was a
3000
thing that-
isn't?
in this
good
episode
enough to
that reminded
recycle.
me of old Star
I just
Trek.
watched The
Wait, is that-
Martian last weekend.
It was the
and
Spock
he-
collector plate.
He took his
No, no, no,
recycled
no.
sandwiches
He
and
sure
turned them
did.
into potatoes.
He sure
He-
did.
Yeah. I would have died on that planet because if there was like me stirring my own poop involved, I
It
would
wasn't
have
just
made
his
it.
own; it was everybody's.
Can we talk a minute about?
Bender's Jazzy Heartbeat.
Yes. So
Is that what you were going to say? For real?
I'm getting there. Yes.
No, what were you going to say, though?
It's a little bit further down, so I don't. Want
That's fine. No,
The
go
fact
ahead.
that Sarah made notes, I just want to hear about
I
her
know.
notes.
Yeah, me
So
too.
we're just gonna go ahead, Sarah. Keep going.
I think my favorite.
I would like to talk about old sandwiches more. No, go ahead.
It's a little further down. So I don't want to spoil it, but my favorite moment of this entire episode is they decide to launch a garbage ball at the garbage ball.
You're going to say one of my favorite moments, too.
And it's-
Okay, yeah.
They're counting down the launch, and they're like, just hit the button to fry, and he goes to press the button, and he totally misses it.
And it has a bullseye
just-
painted
It's a
on
bullseye,
it.
but it's such a
But-
quick
and then-
moment of like,
And he
oh,
just,
oops, and
all
then
he just says is "oops," and then he hits it.
He's
and
such a cheerful idiot. I
it's
love
such
him
a
so
perfect
much.
fry moment.
It is.
So
It's my
good.
favorite moment of this entire episode.
That also reminds me of the fact when they're actually on the actual garbage ball, when they're talking, like they realize that the timer is upside down and everything, like then he screams and like, "We're all gonna die," right?
It's just such like a simple, quick moment, but it's so.
It's just
Fry.
the timing of it is perfect.
Yeah.
It's just like it's so quick. If you weren't paying, if you were like watching the episode and you were like on your phone, like you wouldn't notice it. But if you're like watching it, it's such a great moment.
It's
Just
literally
'cause
a
when
bullseye.
it all comes down to Fry, he has to find a way to screw it up. Just a
Yeah, oh,
little
yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
And he teaches everyone how to throw garbage out, and like he just
He's like,
tells
"This
everyone
pile
to
of
throw it
paper
on
things
the
on
garbage."
the ground.
the ground.
This picture of your wife, pure
Why?
garbage.
First of all, why didn't they think of like a communal place to take all this garbage so it would just be in a ball?
That's
like
my
somebody
thing. How
had
did
to
they
go,
get
like,
it together? They
clean,
all just started
go clean
yeah,
stuff
Probably
up.
robots.
When Bender's he's just double fisting beers and throwing the bottles on the ground.
At the press
this-
conference,
yeah.
and he's
This
just like,
robot more
That's
alcohol.
basically
I
primordial
think I just
robot.
said conference.
This picture of your wife, garbage.
But it's just garbage because they throw it on the floor. Like
Wait a
that-
second. Wait. Tom, I just said that like 3 seconds ago. You just.
But he's gonna edit yours out to make it sound like he said it first.
Good job.
How are you
Tom.
going to edit
Way
this
to go,
out?
Tom.
9/11 was an inside job. Edit that out, Tom.
Oh, well, now the NSA's on to us.
Stop trying to censor me.
And the way it all ends up, because I saw this coming from about 3 minutes out. Well, what happens when the second ball comes back? It's none of our concern.
Yes,
That's the
best.
90s way or whatever.
So literally,
The 20th
The 20th
century
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
like literally nothing gets learned in this
Right.
episode
Yeah.
other than
Well,
how
it
to
does-
make garbage.
And it seems like the whole episode they're teaching you about being, how to recycle and being responsible about your garbage and the environment. And then literally the last scene of this episode is them like, none of our concern.
Yeah, it
It'll
makes
What
take
if that
a
garbage
1,000
ball- yeah.
years.
This episode was nominated for an Emmy.
It
Was
was. It was.
Fun.
It
Was it
lo-
really?
Yes.
It was
Yes.
nominated for Emmy, and
It
it
This
lost
lost.
to
one?
an episode
This
of
f***ing
The Hill.
episode of
This
This is a solid
Silence.
very episode, and it lost to an episode of King of the Hill. So
King of the
Oh,
Hill.
King of the Hill is pretty
King of
great
the
though.
Hill.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
The end credits was like one of the first times of this series, I think, that had like a different song at the end credits, and it was.
Oh, it was
song
a
from-
shout out to Doctor Strangelove,
Yeah,
wasn't
Do-
it?
yeah, I love
Which
that,
is one of
and
my
I-
favorite movies of all
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
It was what?
Yeah.
The song was in it.
At the end credits.
It was.
I
It's
don't
a
remember what it's
two-name-
called, but
It's a 2-word name. I can't remember what it's called.
I didn't notice that.
Is it Donka Shane?
No,
it's.
that's a different movie.
Oh man.
Oh, there's so many devices happening right now. Who's gonna find it first?
Probably him. Oh my god.
Oh, apparently the
I can't look it up. I'm an airplane.
cotton
mode.
gin
I'm
was
gonna never have
invented
it.
in
It was-
1793.
We'll
though.
Meet
Oh.
Again by Vera Lynn.
Oh, that's
Which
yeah,
is
yeah,
the
yeah.
reference to the ending of the film Doctor Strangelove. So they drop a bomb at the end of
Yeah,
Doctor
yeah.
Strangelove.
I don't remember that being the song at the end. I'm sorry. I know how.
I didn't know we could
iconic
suggest
that-
3-word
that
titles.
is.
I thought it was just We'll Meet.
But that
But
song,
it's again.
I forgot that was in there.
in
I'm
parentheses.
mad I didn't write it down because when that came out, I'm like, fuck, I love that song, and that's such a
Yeah.
great. Even though I would have rather that song, like they definitely blew their wad using that song, and they're like, here's this episode, and then made Jurassic Park later, and we're like, oh, we can't.
They're
use
really
that
angling
song
for that
again.
Emmy. You could tell.
Yeah,
with that
yeah, yeah.
song.
Did you guys have fun?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna watch the episodes preceding the episode next time I come on, which I assume is gonna happen.
Yes.
I mean,
Only if you have more smells to talk about.
I have no concept
That's
if
the
this went
worst.
well or not.
Stop.
No, that was a fun.
Oh, I guess we're done? Is that what you're saying?
All in all, this is one day that Mittens the kitten won't soon forget.
Kittens give me gas.